Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Anime Soirée. I've got Griffin and I've got Will with me, and this week we are discussing Jujutsu Kaisen, which is the new Shonen Jump adaptation. Mappa did it. It's basically just, a shonen. It's kind of edgy. What did you guys think?
That was pretty good. I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, it wasn't anything crazy different from a lot of other shonens, but what it did, I think it did pretty well. Thought the fights were good, which is important for a shonen. Thought the characters were interesting. Their powers were cool to see. Yeah, overall liked it quite a lot.
Yeah, I like the theme because I like gross stuff. Like I like goblins and ghouls and bloody looking monsters. And so I like that part. And like all the monsters designs are really cool. They look like oh geez. What's that alien movie? The oh
Alien?
they're like they're not called the prominent. What are they called? The Prometheans?
Oh,
Was that what the Alien movie? Remember those big, like jacked, like white dudes? Like not
you
like
mean like from Prometheus?
yeah.
I don't know if they had a name.
Oh
The founders or something
Oh,
like
are you
that.
talking about like some of them are like jacked and white,
yeah,
famous, like the
yeah,
whatever the nature one was called.
Yeah, he was cool.
yeah. Those
Or
are
she was cool. I don't know.
yeah, some cool designs. They're just like faceless and just like jacked as fuck. And it's just like
Yeah.
that's pretty funny. That's a monster, but also kind of scary.
Yeah. I thought the individual character designs were pretty good, like not even the monsters. I liked a lot of especially when they introduced the second school. I thought a lot of the people from there had really cool designs. They had the guy that looks like the guy that I wanted to see more of was the guy that looks like fucking Netero from Hunter x Hunter, and he's got the guitar I think you see the guitar in one of the either the intro or the ending.
Yeah, I
So
was in the second OP. Yeah.
yeah, second OP, and I was like, "What? That's kind of a weird addition." And then it comes up in the show. I was like, "Oh shit!" And then we just barely see him use it. And I was like, "Oh man." But overall, yeah,
Yeah,
I like
I
all
thought
the
that was
character
pretty cool.
designs. Yeah,
How it was like in the OP, and you're like, oh, that's like non-diegetic. It's just because there's a guitar in the song that they like
yeah,
ended it with a guitar shot. But then like they actually use it, and you immediately recognize the shot because you've seen it a couple episodes now for the OP.
yeah,
So yeah, that was pretty good.
yeah. And
They
then
like
yeah,
yeah, I thought both of the openings, specifically the first one, the first OP was really good.
yeah,
The
really,
Yeah,
really
song
I
good.
is a fucking
agree.
banger, and the visuals are like really good. They had like cool like water effects and stuff. Looked fucking sick.
Very well done water effects, and like the CG was really well done in those. Like, I think the one thing that I noticed every single time I watched it was like Nobara when she has her first shot. It's like her turning, and I think that was a CG shot, but it looks really well done.
Yeah, this might be
Yeah,
the show with the most CG, but like looks the best. With the most CG, if that makes
I think
sense.
it's yeah, it's either this or Demon Slayer, I'd say.
I feel like Demon
yeah.
Slayer uses less CG. And when I
I don't
did
know.
see it,
I think that you would be. I think you'd be surprised. I think a lot of like the digital effects for like the sword stuff. I
Yeah.
think a lot of that was CG. They're just like that. I just think that they did a pretty good job for like the fights of like kind of making it look like it was 2D.
well, then maybe
Yeah, and
it's
I think
Demon Slayer then, if I can't tell that it was CG.
I think it also is just I think the style of how the animation looks is like it plays a lot to how well you can hide CG, and I think both this and Demon Slayer, the stylistic choices they made with like designing characters and stuff really help with that. It felt like very like all the characters felt very geometrical, if that's a word. Like very blocky, almost like with their facial designs and stuff like that. They didn't feel super elegant and like smooth, and I think that really helps with like how they animate them. And
Yeah,
What
because
not
if
that they
you
look
look at
bad.
oh,
It's just like I don't know. Like every time I see Nobara, I'm just like she doesn't look like crazy like elegant anime lady, but like she doesn't look like a gorilla either. So
yeah, if you look at the actual like original manga, the guy's art is like very like sketchy. It really doesn't look like very impressive on like a technical level. So I think that like a lot of the designs are kind of just like, you know, kind of more angular, I guess, to kind of
yeah, that's a good
as
word
an
to use,
attempt to
angular.
replicate the sketchy art. Because yeah, it's definitely not very like anatomically like there's not a lot of technical prowess in the art, I would say, of the manga. I haven't like read it or anything, but just just looking at it, like I've seen it, it doesn't really look anything crazy impressive.
And
But
that's
you know,
okay.
Yeah, no, I think
yeah,
that the anime looks good, like very good.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, the fights definitely look very impressive, and there's like a lot of yeah, the fights are pretty cool. Like when they do any sort of like they're like domain whatever
Domain
they call them when
expansion.
they like yeah, and like those are always like kind of neat. Like the
I
one with
think
all the
the Boogie
hands.
Woogie fight was definitely my favorite. That was really well choreographed with them doing the snap or the clapping and like
Oh
going
Oh,
yeah,
back
that
and
was like
forth.
yeah, that's like the best part of the whole show for sure.
That was like
yeah,
really well choreographed.
yeah. That was
I
so
can't
cool.
imagine like reading the manga and being like, oh fuck, I have to animate
Yeah, 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 no,
I'd
definitely.
also agree that
But I
that
mean, I
was
think that
the
there's
best part
definitely
of the
like
show.
the fights look really good, but there's also a lot of times where they're just standing around talking where it's like, you know, it doesn't look great, and you could definitely tell that they're just sort of like adapting the manga panels. It has like, I mean, I think that Demon Slayer had the same problem where it's like the fights look great, but the show isn't entirely fighting, and like the talking parts don't blow me away or anything because they're not that inventive with how they're like framing the shots or anything. It's just kind of like from the manga.
I could see that.
Yeah.
And I don't
But
know. I never really I can't say that I ever like really noticed that during the talking scenes. Like I was never just like I don't know. I guess maybe because I'm less focused on animation during a talking scene. But I don't know.
I kind of like the landscape or like the setting of the show. They're kind of like I guess it's kind of like a secret society of like sorcerers, right? It's not that well known, and
yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that the average person does not know about this.
there's
It's not
lots
like it's
of
only Chainsaw Man where everybody knows about devils. It's like
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Um, and I just kind of like how much like inner conflict there is, and that like within their clan and within other clans, it seems like kind of everybody's trying to kill everyone. And I kind of like that vibe, because I don't know, it just
it's
adds
very
more.
bleach.
It adds a lot more complexity to their fights and like people working together, like in that the student showcase event they had. They were originally like doing one clan, the Tokyo clan versus the Kyoto clan, and then eventually they got ambushed by curse users, and then they kind of had to work together, and they had like a temporary truce. And then I don't know, they have moments working together, but it kind of seems like they all might not like each other. It's kind of gray, so I'm just kind of curious to see how this develops a bit more because at the after that event, it seemed like they were working together to solve like that murder case and basically figure out what happened at the student event.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I definitely did get a little bit of a Chainsaw Man vibe from like the whole situation because like they have like the schools that each have their own students and stuff, but they're also mentioning like they're like independent contractors and stuff, and it kind of reminded me of like Chainsaw Man. They have like the big divisions, but it seemed like I think I remember also they had like more independent people that worked on these cases and stuff like that, that killed devils, and it was an interesting you have the choice of either becoming like staying with the school or and becoming like a teacher or just like um doing it like for profit on the side. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, me and Will have talked about this before, but this definitely feels like a I mean, this is like very this whole thing is like very like just like taking a bunch of shonen tropes and just putting them all in the same story. But like especially with like the kind of like edgy aesthetic that it has, it definitely seems like it's kind of just like a watered down version of Chainsaw Man. Um I mean, it's it's not as inventive as Chainsaw Man. It's not as like I don't know, it's not as like
Not as
tight as
wacky and
Chainsaw Man.
crazy.
Yeah, it's not as great. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I would
I
just like
the,
this. Yeah, go
the
on.
whole setting was like very it was a very much like a 50-50 mix of Chainsaw Man and Demon Slayer to me, like because you have like like a more modern setting unlike Demon Slayer where this one's like actually modern. Chainsaw Man's like 80s and Demon Slayer's like early 1900s, but then this one's also like wackier than Demon Slayer is, but it still takes itself more seriously um than the characters in Chainsaw Man. But yeah, I thought I definitely felt like that, but I don't think it took away from my experience at all.
Yeah, for me, like the thing that this most reminded me of in terms of like the setting and like the aesthetic, I guess, is definitely Bleach. Bleach has like a similar like modern setting where there's like secretly like another layer of like they're basically curses. I mean, they're like undead kind of, but they're pretty much the same. They function in the same way. And then there's also like clans of people that are like fighting against them. So it's like basically like this just is Bleach pretty much.
I
Um,
didn't know that.
so I mean, and it's not just Bleach because there's like a lot of other tropes as well. Like it's also Naruto where he has like Naruto has like the same thing where he has like some super powerful entity like living inside of him and like sometimes he takes over and stuff and he has to like learn how to control him. So it's kind of similar to that too. It's basically just like a lot of shonen tropes and I feel like for me at least it didn't really congeal into like an actual like I didn't really feel where it was going because there was just so many different tropes until the actual like basically like the whatever you call it, like the arc where they're all doing like the group fights and stuff, where they're fighting each other from the other schools. Um, Basically the tuning exams from Naruto. But like when they're doing the one-on-one fights, that's when I really started to like give a shit about the characters because before that it just seemed like there was like it was like such a clusterfuck with like so many different things being introduced at once and like and then they wouldn't matter, you know, like they introduced like the main three, but then like pretty like after like one time that they went out together and like did a mission, they like immediately got split up with like they didn't even know that Yuji was alive. Like he was just doing his own thing for a while. And like and then they introduced like they weirdly introduced like the guys from Kyoto, but then they like don't matter for like a whole other arc after that. And they like don't even really do anything that like impactful when they first show up either. There was just like a lot of instances where I was just like, where is like the direction of the show like going?
Yeah,
It was like
I feel that.
I I also noticed that with like they randomly like have that mini arc with the guy with the sunglasses that he where he's
mhm,
fighting one of the main demons.
yeah.
Like that just seemed like out of place. Like just weirdly paced at least. Like just kind of in the middle of everything. We're not with any of
Mhm,
the main characters that we've known. Like I
yeah.
don't even know if we had seen this guy before that. He was in the intro. I remember that, but
Yeah, no, that was his introduction, I'm pretty sure.
yeah. I mean, it was a
And I
cool
mean like
fight for sure.
yeah, and I like that guy. Like the sunglasses guy is like probably like I really liked his like backstory about like realizing that like his like corporate job is like not actually providing any value to anyone
Yeah.
and he's like not actually making anyone more happy or like giving anyone what they need but like for some weird reason he's making more money than like the baker who's like involved in like the most fundamental human need and like I liked his backstory and everything but yeah it was just in a weird spot because like we'd already been like shown like two other characters who I'm like are on all of like the promo art and in the opening so it's like okay like the other two they're going to be like this is our main trio but then we like barely see them before they like think that Yuji is dead and then they like don't do anything until Yuji comes back in like the group fight arc so yeah I think that like maybe like that should have been earlier, because then like I would have had more of a reason to like care. We would have seen these characters in one-on-one fights. We would have gotten their backstories earlier, and then I would have like, had a reason to care about them, as opposed to just like introducing them kind of like fucking off for a while, and then coming back, and then it's like, oh, now I have a reason to care, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah, I have
I
like
agree.
no idea what's going on in this show. Like I don't know what like he's got to eat fingers and he wants to help people and stuff kind of just like happens and I
Yeah,
don't feel
exactly.
like there's a real strong sense of like goal accomplishment.
On the on the topic of helping people, like they made a big deal about that in the first like 2 or 3 episodes with like him having a really strong bond with his grandfather, and like that was his dying wish that like he wants him to help people. But I feel like I completely forgot about the whole grandfather thing the entire rest of the show. I thought that was gonna be like his like main drive, and like there'd be a good callback and maybe like a flashback to like why he has such a good bond with his grandfather, and they did set that up quite a good amount. Like I think they did have a flashback for that
Yeah, I
bond,
think
but like
during the arc where like the side arc with the sunglasses dude where he's like fighting the school shooter guy, um,
yeah,
he
I
had
don't
a
know.
flashback. I'm pretty sure.
I
Yeah.
just I just didn't I completely forgot about the grandfather after a bit. And then I was like, at the
Yeah.
end, I was like, oh yeah, that's why he's doing this.
I wouldn't have minded if he didn't die, if he like had stuck around and kind of been like more of like a moral compass, I guess, for Yuji. Because like Yuji is like not a very like he's kind of like a fish out of water in this whole thing. Like he doesn't really have like a strong goal, you know? Like me and Griffin were kind of talking about this in like the My Hero Academia episode, where it's kind of like one of the things that like makes a really good shonen protagonist is like one with like a very personal goal where it's like, okay, like this is how we're going to like attain it. We need to do this, this, and this in order to get to our goal. And it's like he's sort of given the goal of like getting the fingers and stuff. And so that's like a very like, okay, that's where the story is going in the long run. But it's like not personal to Yuji, you know? Like, why should he care about the fingers? Like he was just given this like power, this like demon inside of him. Like he it's not like he gives a shit like Gon cares about finding his father or like how Luffy wants to be Pirate King or anything like that. You know, it's just sort of like given to him.
Yeah, I definitely felt like he was. I don't know. It just didn't seem particularly unique in any like.
Yeah, I'd
I
agree with that.
I didn't have like a great reason to care. I mean, I did like Yuji. Like I think I enjoyed when he was on screen. I thought he was a pretty funny character, especially in like some of the post episode clips. And I liked a lot of the characters, but like I didn't have a great reason to care for a lot of them, I guess. I just they just didn't have they weren't particularly unique to me.
I kind of liked Fushiguro by the end. He had some interesting like backstory and some personal struggles that it looked like he was working on, and I liked him.
I think he had the most growth for sure. I mean, I mean, not like power wise, just as a character.
I don't really feel like we know that much about Kugisaki.
Yeah, Nobara was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Another thing I kind of going off this is like power scaling seemed very quick in this.
Yeah,
Like Yuji got really
definitely.
strong really fast, and like,
Yeah.
and then they had to play catch up with Nobara and Megumi, and they also got really strong really fast, and it just didn't feel rewarding. They had like a training arc, but it didn't feel like a rewarding training arc. And I understand like for Yuji it kind of makes sense because like his his like form of gaining power is very like tangible. He literally is eating fingers. Like every finger he eats, he gets stronger. Like that's a very easy way to say like this character is getting more powerful, but like at the same time it just wasn't rewarding. And like his training arc, like him watching the movies or whatever, was funny, but like that was kind of whatever. And then it didn't seem fantastic.
I liked the movie arc or like the movie, and it wasn't really an arc, it was like one episode. I
Yeah.
liked that episode. Like I thought that was like a it was like a inventive way to like do a training arc, you know? Um, but it's like we didn't really get much more of that. Like I would have liked if that was like the start to his training, you know? I guess we also kind of get the part where like he's getting like the shit kicked out of him by like the principal with all of like his dummies. I actually really liked that episode. Like I liked him kind of like forcing him to come up with like a reason why he was like why he wanted to like become a sorcerer or jujutsu sorcerer or whatever. And like at first he's like kind of like doing it, he's saying like, oh, I want to like do it for because my grandpa told me to, basically. But then he like he ends up coming up with a personal reason or whatever. But it's like we don't really like see that. Like I feel like that was just like it just feels like, okay, that now that's addressed and now that's over. Now we're like that his arc is done. And it's like I would prefer if like the main character like didn't have his arc in one episode, you know?
Yeah.
Um yeah, I don't know.
Also, like the
I
whole movie thing was like very samey to other things that we've seen. Like it was all about like him holding his concentration and like being able to control his energy output for like an extended period of time, which
mhm.
reminded me immediately of like Gon and Kiowa learning how to keep their nanet like constant like throughout the day or whatever. And then also you have like Tanjiro and the gang like learning how to control their like hold their breath throughout the day. It like once again it kind of felt like samey and
Well, yeah, but I
stuffy.
do appreciate the fact that like you can kind of like logically say that they're the same, but like the actual like how it's executed, like how the scene plays
Oh
out
yeah, no,
is
it's
like
a unique
pretty
take on
different
it
because
for
it's like
sure.
literally like watching movies and like if he like doesn't focus hard enough, then he gets like punched by like a little teddy bear. Like that was like, it's like a
But didn't he
funny
like
scene.
master it like within like 5 minutes of it? Didn't they like make a remark like, oh, he already hasn't punched you, and like next time he visited him, it was like, oh, you already mastered this? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean he's he mastered it pretty quickly, which is like a little annoying, I guess. But I at least like appreciate that they like showed that. But yeah, like I said, I would have liked more stuff like that because that was basically like the last time that there was ever any mention of like Yuji or really any of the characters like training. Like
Yeah.
everything after that was just sort of like fights and stuff, which is like cool. But yeah, I mean the fights, like I said, the fights um in like the arc where they're paired off, like the
Well,
students are fighting each other. That was like the best part of the show for me.
they
But
did show scenes with Fushiguro training with Gojo later in the show, but if you're just talking about explicitly with Yuji,
oh,
then
okay, I
uh
must have I forgot, I guess.
yeah, there was like one scene where Gojo and Megumi were just talking, and Gojo was like, "That Yuji, he's pretty strong. I guess you're trying to catch up to him because you asked me to train with you." And then they
Yeah,
did.
he was like,
Oh
he
yeah, I
never asked
remember
me to
that.
train with you. Yeah.
But they didn't go into like any specific techniques or anything. It was just
And it's
like
yeah,
about
yeah, that's the thing is
mentality.
like with like the best kind of training arcs are the ones where it's like, okay, we are trying to get this power, and then they work really hard and then they get the power at the end. But like all of the training in this show is not really for that. It's just like, okay, like this is how we're training, and then like nebulously later on they're just stronger, like their power levels are higher, or they just like pull something out of their ass during a fight. Like it would be nice if there was like a little bit of like, you know goal setting ahead of time, you know
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do agree that I like it when training arcs like have a very specific direction and like
yeah,
evolving a particular part of their toolkit. And
yeah,
because then usually there comes like an explanation of like how that's actual beneficial, and you can like see the usage, and it's just a lot better to like gauge their progress rather than to seeing like, oh shit, they just got a new power. um do they just, I don't know what goes into making that power, and it's just less interesting.
dude, yeah, like the the most, I think the worst like instance of this was like when he just like they just randomly introduced the concept of the Black Flash like in the middle of a fight, right? So like Yuji is like doing like they're this is when they're fighting like the nature spirit. Like Yuji is just like he's getting in a fight with this thing, and he's like they're about to like he's about to like do a hit or whatever, and they just like cut away to like the sunglasses guy like just being like, oh, like there's this thing called like Black Flash, and it's basically like a critical hit, so like whenever you land one, it like is like 2.5 times damage or whatever, which like in the first place, like 2.5 times damage, that just seems like such like a weak, like for something that's like presented as being so fucking cool. It's like, why wouldn't you just hit them like 3 times, and then it's already better than 2.5 times damage?
Yeah.
Um but anyway, like the way that they just like introduce it right then and there, and then like and then he's like, also like, by the way, like it's really hard to do it like 4 times in a row, like I'm like the only one who's ever done it 4 times in a row. And then like they just like then that scene is over, and then he like he does it 4 times in a row, and it's like there's like no like catharsis there, because like we learn about it and then it immediately happens, like if they had just like set it up maybe like 5 episodes earlier or something like that, then we would have been like, oh shit, he's doing the thing that they talked about before. But there's like none of that, like it's just like introduced in the moment. And it basically like it kind of like the reason it even has to happen is because like Yuji has like some other power where it's like it's like a delayed hit or something, where he like hits them and then the cursed energy comes like a second later or something. um but they like the fucking guy, the Todo, just like tells him like, by the way, that's like shit, so you need to like learn a new
Yeah, I
one.
was like so confused because like Gojo, when Gojo found out about it, he's like, oh, that's kind of cool. You got like your curse energy hits like a second after your actual physical attack, and then when he
Uh-huh.
gets to Toto, and Toto's just like, yeah, that's garbage. Like you should be like hitting at the same time. Like this is what you need to do, and like this is the Black Flash. Like this is like your goal. I was like, wait,
Yeah,
Gojo's like the best guy around. Like, why is he
exactly.
listening to
Yeah.
Toto over Gojo?
I mean,
Like, if Gojo
Yeah,
honestly,
says something is a good thing and like it's cool that he's doing it, like there's got to be some reason that it's happening, right?
I'm
And
in
then it was just thrown away.
I'm inclined to actually agree with Toto. Like his power is pretty lame.
Well, no, I agree. I also agree with Toto, but like like in universe, Gojo is like the
Yeah,
strongest
I
person
get
who
what you're
gets the
saying.
book.
I get what you're
So
saying.
Yeah.
like I don't know. It was very
It
weird that they
really
just
does make me think that like the author just decided like, okay, that actually doesn't really sound that cool. So like I'm just gonna like come up with a different power. No, like seriously, like
No,
literally,
I
like
can
I
see
was
that for sure.
yeah. I mean, I understand that like part of the appeal of reading these like long running series that are like, obviously they're not all planned out at the start. Like they're kind of making up some stuff as they go, right? But like I feel like this one, there was like a lot of moments where it's just like you could really tell that like this was just being come up with like on the spot, like right when he was making this chapter. Like he's just like, oh, I need a new thing. Like let me just introduce a new mechanic right now, like with the fucking like cursed swords or like cursed weapons or whatever. Like they were like, oh, by the way, like weapons, they can be cursed too, and like they're like different grades, just like the sorcerers. And then it's like, okay, now we're using them. Like if that would have been like just referenced like a little bit earlier, then it would have been like, oh, like now we're seeing them in action. But it's just like it seems like they're just coming up with explanations like off the seat, like just like off the cuff. They're just like coming up with shit as it goes. And I was like, I did some research, like the fucking before this manga, there was like another manga that the author did that was like it was basically just like a one shot or like maybe like four chapters or something, and it was like a self-contained thing, and it was basically like about it was like about this other character in this universe, who they like actually mention a couple times. I think his name is like
I think I heard
Yuta or
about this.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like and he has like adventures with like some of like the older students, like the ones from yeah, just like any of like the second years are basically in it. So like but then it was like really popular, and like the Shonen Jump people were like, "Oh, dude, like you should like make a whole series out of this, like a long running one." And so he just made this. So like it seems like this whole series was like not there was like no planning involved at all. Like I feel like in a normal series, like you have the author like come up with it and be like, "Okay, this is going to be my long running series, so I'm going to have like these elements and I'm going to like try to set these up." But with this, it was like supposed to be self contained, and then they were like, "Okay, now you have to like make it longer." And so I feel like you can really feel a lot of the moments where it's just like he's just, he's running out of runway, like he hasn't set anything up, so he just has to make it up as he goes.
I could see that for sure. Isn't that what the movie's gonna be about? I
I
think it
think yeah,
is.
they are making it. It's just
Like
like
a
like
prequel movie.
why wasn't that just like the first couple episodes,
The stuff that's
or
already
like
written.
yeah, because it's like it's already in the manga, and like they reference the character like a couple times. They're like, oh, where's like Yuta, and he's kind of like made out to be like mysterious or whatever. And I mean,
Is
I
he one
didn't
of the
read those
seniors?
chapters. He's supposed to be one of the second years, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Just like a general complaint. Why do these shonen spread themselves like so thin? Like all these new shonen have so many characters, and I just
Because
feel
they want.
like the value for each character is so low, except for a handful of them that they actually spend time, like developing. But then they make a lot of the entire cast of characters recur, and it's like why not just introduce them like one at a time and spend an episode on them, or isolate them with the main character, and then make it like a small few episodes, and not, I don't know, there's just
Yeah.
so much going on with so many different characters, and it was really hard for me to gauge my interest because I don't know, I felt like, especially in the student training arc, or the student exercise, there's a whole new class of characters, but I don't even know everybody in that class, because there's the upper division people, and there's like a guy who's a panda, and like a chick who doesn't really have powers, and some guy that I didn't even know who his power was or what his name was, but apparently he's on my side, but I know nothing about him, and apparently he could like shout and anything will happen. And it's like, that's pretty cool. Like, tell me who he is. Like, I don't know. It's
Some
really hard for me to keep my concentration on this show.
uh two comments on that. I think it's like kind of a more meta thing is like people that write shonens are they want to show off like cool powers that they've thought of that they've been reading or watching shonens, and they're like, but what if this character had this power? So they make characters that had those power, and they keep doing that, and they want to keep showing off those cool powers. But also, something that really annoyed me with this show is like I felt like some of the characters from the other school got more backstory than, or most of them got more backstory than the characters from
That's true.
our school.
That's
Like
so
we literally got
true.
more backstory for, I mean, Zenin, both the Zenin sisters, Maki and Mai, got like a way more backstory than even like Nobara. I feel like Nobara got really shafted with her backstory.
I don't know.
Yeah,
What what
Nobara's
what
backstory was so bizarre.
what
It
is
was
hers?
really weird. Like it was like she had like a childhood friend or like a girlfriend. I didn't understand what they're going for there. If it was like just a friendship or something more.
I think it was. I think they
Uh,
were just friends. I don't think that she's like lesbian
yeah,
or
I,
anything.
I mean, but like it was like she like flashed back to it like every so often for like a minute, and then like it wouldn't. I don't know. I was so
Like
confused with her
basically,
backstory.
the thing was like she used to live in like the countryside basically, and like she had like a friend who like moved there from Tokyo, and she was like her friend, and like basically like everybody else just like didn't like her because she was from the city, and they like bullied her, and then that's like her whole backstory. It's like
Yeah,
not even really like tragic. It's like she knew someone that like had something tragic happen to them.
yeah,
Um,
Wow.
but like
That's right. I
both the
remember
Zenin
that.
sisters had more backstory, and then also like the robot guy had a pretty interesting like his backstory
dude,
was
he was
focused on quite
literally
a
the
bit.
guy from SpongeBob, like the guy who
Yes, I
the
Yeah.
guy.
know.
Yeah.
But like he had more of like more focus on his backstory than a lot of the main characters, and he was just like a guy from the other school that we hadn't met until then.
And the blood guy as well had some backstory as well. He was like, I need to carry on my clan. And I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, well, it's not a lot of information, but it's more than I got from fucking Inumaki Togi, that fucking shouty guy who speaks in like nonsensical
In ramen.
phrases. I don't know what the fuck
yeah.
he's talking about.
I was
Yeah,
okay with not getting his backstory. He seemed kind of like he seems like one of the stronger characters that they are gonna dive into later, and that's I don't know. Whenever they introduce stronger characters, I'm always like, all right, he's gonna be showing up, and then he's gonna get sidelined, and then maybe season two will learn about him.
And I remember at the end of let's see, I think it was one of the last few episodes. There was like a conversation like between Sakuna and Yuji, and Sakuna's like, "You're gonna fuck up, bro," and Yuji was like, "No, I'm not." And I was like, "Oh yeah, like they probably like talk all the time." We never really get to see that too often. We never really get to
dude, I
see
know.
Yuji and Sakuna have like if you have like one of the strongest curses in the world inside your body, like I'd probably be talking to him because he's probably pretty interesting and
Dude, yeah.
weird.
Also, whenever
The
Sukuna
fact,
showed up, just like completely dick down some curse, I was like, can I see more Sukuna?
yeah.
It was just like
Dude, okay,
pathetic.
like the fact that like there was like that entire thing like during like their first well, not their first mission with like where like Nobara, like where Nobara first showed up, but like the one where they go into the prison, and then like that's when like Yuji first like completely loses control, and like Sukuna has like his entire body, and like they have like the crazy fight with like him and Megumi, and like he basically like they have like this whole thing where like he's like, okay, like in order for we need to like come to an agreement or something, and they like say, oh well, like he's like, if you like say a word or something, I'll like come out or something like that, and then they like fight, and then obviously he like one shots him because he's the fucking like cursed king or whatever. um but like and I guess that was just the resolution to that like arc, but it like didn't feel resolved because it's like this is like the main hook of your show, and you're just sort of like sidelining it. It was like really weird that like the show sort of like treated that as being addressed already, where it was like like it's not, like clearly it's not, because this is like like yeah, it's like the hook, this is like the main premise of the show, and you're just sort of like it's like ignored, like after like episode 5 it's like basically ignored until like the end when they have that conversation, I guess. So yeah, pretty weird, like just like that just sort of contributed to the initial feeling I got of the show being really directionless. Like I was just like very unclear as to like what the appeal was, like where it was going. It just sort of felt like a hodgepodge of shonen tropes. But like I said, I do think that it got a lot, like Griffin was saying earlier that he like didn't like the group fight arc, the where they're like where they introduce like they had introduced them before, but where they start to flesh out the other school. But I actually liked that arc. Like I liked the one-on-one fights. I liked that we were like finally getting reasons to care because we were seeing the characters, either their backstories or like them doing cool stuff. And it just sort of like felt like, okay, like this is like this is actually playing out the way a traditional shonen would instead of just throwing a bunch of tropes together. Like, yeah, a lot of like their backstories were pretty like basic and stuff, but at least it like gave me something. It gave me like a reason to care. So yeah, I thought that was like probably the best part. And
No,
then also
I
it
like
had
that part of the show, Kyle. I
okay.
just didn't really like the foundation we had going into it, I guess. Like,
Yeah,
we
I
just
agree.
knew
Yeah.
so little about our MCs and they weren't together very long. And then
Yeah.
they're just
I
going
agree.
in and there's this whole new people that where they're all getting more introductions than, I don't know. I feel like we needed a little bit more from our MCs, but yeah, keep
Yeah.
going.
I think that like what the show really could have benefited from is either like putting that earlier and like maybe kind of like shuffling around the backstory. So like our main guys' backstories were like first and like given more focus. So we had like a clear, like signaling of like this is like the ones that you should really care about. Or if they just had like more missions where they're like together before doing that. So we had like reason to care about them as a unit. They're like working as a team and stuff. And like we care about each one individually. So yeah, I just think that like the fact that like Yuji was just on his own for a while and they like literally thought he was dead was just like a really bizarre choice for
It
like
was a very weird
our main
choice.
three.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, that was dumb.
Yeah,
It was so
definitely.
I don't know
dumb.
if it was dumb. I think it was just executed weirdly.
No, I think it was
I think it was like a dumb decision to like have it structured that way.
Imagine you're watching a Hunter x Hunter and they're doing the Hunter exam, and then the entire Hunter exam Gon is gone. He's on his own, and then
Wait.
the other ones get to hang out together, and then Gon's doing his own thing. That would suck.
Yeah.
Just imagine. Um,
Yeah, exactly. Like just thinking about where like other shonen had been at like so when did like that arc start where we start like getting the contest between the schools? Like that was probably like episode like 15 or something. Like think about like where we are in like episode 15 of Hunter x Hunter. Like we're deep into the Hunter exam and like we know a shit ton about all of our characters. Like by that point we like know all of their personalities and like we like understand like how they like tick. But like by that point I didn't fucking know anything about any of the characters. Like I was just like I guess like Yuji's a good boy, like he like wants to help people. And I guess like, Megumi is like kind of edgy, I guess, for some reason and then Nobara is a girl. Like that was like basically like all we had, and it's just like there was just so little characterization until like the tournament arc, basically.
I'm gonna basically turn the rest of this podcast into a Hunter x Hunter
Yeah,
comparison, but just remember that the group does split up in Hunter x Hunter. Kurapika's like, I gotta avenge my clan. It's like, okay, bro, you got a purpose, you got drive, you do what you gotta
yeah, like
do.
it's for a like personal goal,
And then in this one, it's like, oh well, you gotta pretend you're dead because like,
because
they
it'd be
want to like
funny, dude.
they like gotta like kind of kill you because like you're scary, and
Yeah,
I don't know, it's not very interesting. And I feel like if you were a badass MC, you'd be like, no, fuck that, they can try to come kill me if they want. And instead he's just like, okay, I'll hide. It's like, okay, you're a little bitch.
yeah,
And then even Leorio's like, I would be a doctor. And it's like, you go get that education, man, like,
yeah,
go for it.
yeah, dude. And it like had a reason, like there was just like so much more goals in Hunter, and in just like yeah. I mean, the more we talk about shonen, the more I think that like that's like such an important aspect of a good one is like setting clear goals for the characters and having them be personal to them
Does
because then it's
this
like characterization and it's also like giving the story direction and like yeah.
does this show excel at anything?
The
Fight
animation's
choreography
good.
is probably its best thing.
Yeah, I would say that like probably like yeah the fight animation and stuff.
Wasn't there another one that we watched recently that had poor choreography, or I couldn't tell? I could have sworn one of the recent things that we watched, like we couldn't tell what was going on in some of the fights.
Um, I remember Goblin Slayer wasn't that impressive in terms of its choreography.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that
that
was
was
pretty
just
bad.
unimpressive though. It wasn't like bad choreo. I'm trying to think. I could have sworn there was one, but maybe not.
Let me look.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
just kind of looking through what we saw recently.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that like the fights were good and like the you know, like okay, actually there is one thing that this show excels at. And that's basically one character and the best character in the entire show.
Toto.
And that is fucking Toto. We need to talk about Toto and how he's the best.
Toto.
Like literally like so I mean he's first like there are just so many layers to Toto, you know? Like he's first introduced and he's like, bro, like what is your type, fam? Like tell me your type. And fucking and Megami is unable to come up with a response. And he's like, you are like you are the scum of the earth because you don't have a type and you can't clearly enumerate them. If your type is not like tall women with big butts, then you are like an idiot and you deserve to die. And you know,
Kyle,
Cut
you
out.
cut
What'd you
out.
say?
there's
Kyle, hold up.
oh, can you hear me?
You cut out for a
Yeah,
second.
it sounds like you're coming in clear now.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Well, at first he's like a gag character with like asking people their type and stuff and getting mad if they can't come up with one. And you know, I was like, okay, he's like he's kind of like a joke. I didn't really think much of him when he was first introduced, to be honest, with his like kind of fight with Megami. But then when he like shows up in like the tournament arc, um, where they're fighting each other and he's like on the side that's supposed to kill he's supposed to kill Yuji. But like he like meets up with him and like he
Well,
just sort of
well
like
first he like leaves his own group. They're like, we're gonna kill this guy, and he's like, nah, I'm gonna do my own thing. Sorry, and he just
yeah,
leaves,
exactly.
which is a
Yeah.
badass move.
And he like meets up with like Yuji and he just sort of like, you know, he asks him the question like you know, like what's your type? And Yuji is like, well, if I had to say, I would probably say like you know, like a tall woman with a big butt. And then and then fucking and then this is like Toto just like has they have a flashback for Toto where he like remembers this entire childhood friendship that he had with Yuji that is completely not real and he just completely made it up in his mind because he has the same type as him and he basically like tricks himself into thinking that they were friends and so he's like Yuji, my best friendo, and he just keeps calling him his best friend. And at first I was kind of like, okay, like I get it, like he thinks he's his friend, that's like kind of funny. But like they you know they kind of keep going on and like the fight with like Yuji and like eventually it starts to like bring in like the nature spirit and so it's like this is like the most important fight obviously because it's like our main character but it's also like the biggest spirit thing that they had like faced so far and so like they're fighting and it's going on for a couple episodes and like he keeps calling him my best friendo and like just sort of like yeah dude this is kind of funny like the fact that, that he's just sticking with this and then the fucking payoff when like when Yuji calls him my best friendo and they do the fucking pose and then they start to like use his like insanely cool power where they're like teleporting and like switching spots with each other. I was just like, yes, this fucking guy is like the best character like ever. And he was fucking sick.
and then
And
and
like
then like later when they're fighting, they're calling each other brother. There's like brother.
like this guy had just like fully indoctrinated Yuji into thinking that he was also like he basically just manifested the reality of them being best friends. And like also they just sort of like nonchalantly or he like just nonchalantly mentions later that he like has a like 530,000 IQ. And like there's like one point where like the nature spirit is like doing an attack on him and then he like fucking retreats into like his like mind, his like safe place in his mind, where like he talks to this like idol that like he has like this like huge crush
Huge
on.
sin for
Yeah,
this
so
idol.
Yeah,
funny.
like we forgot to mention the fact that he's like a huge sim for this idol. Like I said, so many layers to the man that is Toto. And so like he like has this conversation with her, like where they're like in middle school, and she's like, oh, like you know, by the way, like you seem to be putting up your curse defenses. You seem to be using a lot of curse energy right now. But then she like kind of like is like they talk through and then he realizes like oh shit like this attack that's being sent at me is actually like um you know this is actually going to feed off my curse energy so I need to like neutralize my defenses and just take it physically and so he does that and then the narrator like after that happens says like this whole conversation took like 0.0001 seconds so like does
Yeah.
he actually have like a 530,000 IQ? Like I don't know, but I want to believe that he does because like I said, he's the best character of all time.
Yeah, and another layer you forgot, well, you kind of touched on, but like the fact that like, well, when he leaves and just like goes to fight Yuji, like when he finds Yuji and like after he asks Yuji the question, he's just like, I will literally like you are so much stronger than you think, and I will literally beat your ass to get you to realize how strong you are. And like
Mhm.
literally that fight probably gives Yuji like the biggest power up that we see at that time. Like he just like beats his ass until Yuji gets stronger.
The fact that he's just like beating his ass while repeatedly calling him my best friend is just it's so fucking good.
Also, after the fight, when Yuji just like they're just like, "Why is he calling you best friend?" Yuji's like, "I have no idea." And then like the fight later on, I think there's another fight after that where he just like continues to say like brother or whatever. I don't
Yeah,
know.
like and then like later in like the after like the whole thing is over, where like they're doing
The baseball.
the baseball, they're like in like I thought the baseball episode was really good,
Yeah,
and
I
like
like the baseball episode
Me
a lot.
too.
the they had like the little infographics like that were about like all of like the different characters, and like for Toto's one it said like has a fond memory of like him and Yuji like doing this thing in middle school, and then like they like cut to like Yuji, and then his crawler just says has no recollection of this event. Like I just love the fact that his indoctrination of like his fucking he's convinced himself so hard that it's like appearing in the meta elements of the show. It was fucking great. Like, yeah, I just love Toto. Like, I fucking love that guy.
I thought he was definitely a good character, like a standout for like a side character, and I also really liked Maki. I think her name was the girl that didn't have the powers. I thought every time she was in a fight, it was just badass. Like her weapon skills were so cool.
Yeah, she did have some cool fights. Yeah,
When she was just beating the ass of that blue-haired girl, it was so like she literally like takes her sword and like that was super cool.
yeah. And she like her and her sister actually love each other. They don't hate each other. That was the
Yeah.
reveal. I mean, like I definitely saw that coming, but it was like, at
Her
least it was
sister
kind
was
of like an
such a
endearing moment.
disappointment. Like what was like she was shooting people? Like that was so
But
lame.
then yeah, she was like, I hate you, sister. And then she like shoots her and she's like, but it was only a rubber bullet. So it's like clearly you don't really hate her. Yeah.
Her power was kind of lame. I'm trying to think of other cool powers that we see. I think Nobaro's is kind of interesting with like nails and hammers. Like that's not something I've
Hmm.
seen before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought Nobara was pretty cool.
it has like
I
witch
like her.
elements. That's what I like about it. Where she like
Uh,
took the guys. Well, she's taking like parts of like an
Oh yeah, she
enemy.
has like the voodoo
the
dolls.
voodoo
Yeah,
doll thing was super cool. Yeah.
I like that
Yeah.
part.
And I
I
just
think the
like
guy.
I like her fucking when she like fights like the witch, like the blonde-haired witch. Um and the blonde-haired witch is like you don't understand how fucking hard it is to be like a sorcerer and also be a girl because you have to be pretty and you have to be strong. And fucking Nobara just goes like, "You know what? Like I love myself when I'm being pretty. I love myself when I'm being strong." And she's just like, "And I'm ready to fucking kick your ass." Like I was like, "Yeah, dude. Nobara, pretty cool." I liked her. I liked her. At first I wasn't a huge fan, but I definitely warmed up to her as the show went on, as she like started to do cool shit in the fucking tournament.
Yeah,
I thought
because they
the
actually decided to give her screen time in the second half.
Yeah.
That's why I started
Yeah,
liking
exactly.
her.
Yeah.
there's still not a great backstory.
Yeah. I mean, at least you
Yeah.
get to see her personality shine and like, have to critically
Yeah.
think, which is better than nothing.
Yeah. I thought she had like a good personality. Like she's like definitely like a good a lot of times in shonen, the female characters aren't that great, but I thought she was definitely good.
Yeah, I think most of the female characters are pretty good in this, and she was like a good mix between Yuji and Megumi, where she was like, I think she was more on Yuji, like she was kind of like fooling around with Yuji quite a lot, just like doing random stuff. But also she was like there was that scene early on when they were in the city, and because I think they mentioned like both Yuji and Nobara are from the country or whatever, and like so they were both freaking out about being in the city, stuff like that, where you get a little bonding between everybody. Yeah, I thought she was a pretty good character.
Um,
Yeah.
I really
Let's talk
like
about
the.
Gojo.
Oh, I just before we leave, Toto, just because it's relevant, but I really liked
Yeah.
Hanami, the villain they fought against, and like the nature ability, and
Yeah.
how she was just like kind of stereotypically like humans are like a stain on the earth, and I'm like, okay, I've heard that one before, but it definitely seemed like not in line with like the rest of the villains, which I thought was kind of interesting. A lot of the
Yeah,
other ones seemed like motivated just like because it's instinctual for them to want to kill humans. And they even made a point to like make that discrepancy, which I thought was kind of cool. And the big patchwork villain, I forgot his name, was even like, saying like,
Mahito, I
hey,
think.
yeah, Mahito was saying like, hey, maybe you should enjoy this a little bit. Like it's kind of fun fighting humans. And then throughout the fight, she had that realization that she was finding enjoyment out of the fight, and I thought that was an interesting way to develop a villain. I don't really know if I've seen anything like that before, so I thought that was actually really cool, like really really cool. I thought that was great, and then obviously like uh, Toto and Yuji's side was really, really awesome as well, but we already talked about that. So I thought that fight was like kind of perfect. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, I agree. That whole basically like from when Yuji starts like fighting Toto to when they team up against Hanami, like that entire shit, that was fucking shonen gold right there. Like
Yeah.
that's like as fucking, you know, like just I mean, I'm not saying like the show, as we've said, has a lot of problems. But like for a moment, it reached like fucking peak shonen. Like that was good ass shit.
I think there were a
It's,
few moments where it had really good, like really high highs, but then like
yeah,
the rest of it was like kind of whatever. Also, I think Gojo is like a pretty interesting character because I don't know if some of the shows we've talked about, like shonen wise, I don't know if we've seen like somebody so overpowered.
I think we
Like
have, but he's just so
he's
active as well. Like he's like
yeah.
usually they're more like sidelined. Like
Yeah, it's like if Netero like showed his abilities like really early on in Hunter x Hunter. If we're continuing with the Hunter x Hunter or comparisons,
yeah,
yeah, if like Netero like just showed up when they were fighting some like he showed up at like the tournament arc in second season and just like completely killed somebody or something, it would be very very or like or if Netero took down some of the Phantom Troop, like it would be so weird. And then you've got like Gojo, who's like the strongest character in this entire universe that we've seen so far. Well, I guess we haven't seen some of the Curses fight that we've seen in like the beach area, but
yeah. But they
he's
make it
pretty
pretty clear that
scary.
Gojo is like basically I mean, from what I gathered, it seemed like he was like the power ceiling of the show. Like
Yeah,
they
for
basically
sure.
say he's like the strongest of the jujutsu sorcerers.
Like
So like,
they make something like I guess it's like a pretty common thing where like when you have an ability and you make it like pretty general, it's like it does that general purpose, but it's pretty weak. And when you make it very specific, it does that, and it's because it's so specific, it gets stronger. So they
yeah,
make
it's
like
like
this
Nen rules.
barrier that only keeps him out, and he breaks the barrier. Like that's pretty scary.
Yeah. I mean, like with him, I don't know. I wasn't like a huge fan of his power. I kind of felt like his power was very similar to I feel like I've seen like the whole like infinity power before. Like his is basically like that one paradox, right? Where it's like if you like keep dividing your distance to something in half, you'll never reach it. And so like he's basically like you can't touch me because like that's like how it works in my domain or whatever. And so he has like infinity powers and stuff. And then he also like does some stuff where he like mind fucks them. And he like overloads their brain with like a bunch of knowledge, like infinite knowledge or whatever. And so like he definitely
Halloween.
seems, yeah, I was about to say, it's like literally like it's the same thing as Halloween, but it's just like Halloween had like so much more fucking like character. And it was
Yeah,
like
Halloween
kind
got
of
a lot of character.
like it was like a fucking joke. Like it was like it had personality. Like this is just like that. Like this is just like how um it's all about the execution. Like it's the same idea. It's the same idea of just like overloading someone's mind with infinite information. But like with Gojo, it's basically played like exactly how you would expect it. Where with like the Halloween thing, for one, it like came out of nowhere because this character was not built up to be like a very strong character at all. They're built up to be a joke. Um, but then like the power, not only did it like provide an explanation for why they were portrayed as a joke earlier, but it also like it just like had it was like imbued with that character's like you know uh character and like
and it,
personality
and
and
it
stuff.
also like improved previous scenes because like you understand why Halloween.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why this character's been
Like,
saying Halloween the entire time.
yeah. Whereas like with Gojo, like you have that moment where like with the initial clash between like him and like the curse from like Mahito's team that he's putting together. But then like where that leads to is like during the when like they attack again at like the training like the inner school arc, and like he basically just like makes a big beam with it. And it's like, is that really like the most creative thing that you could come up with a guy with like literally infinity powers, like a big beam? It just seems like they're just sort of like they're like, ooh, like it's like philosophical. It's got like this paradox. It's like infinity and stuff. But then at the end of the day, it's just another shonen blast.
Yeah.
So it's all about the execution. Like the ideas, like in shonen, I feel like the ideas are usually not that deep. It's all about like maximizing interest and like making them putting your own unique spin on them and just sort of like being able to like confidently move from one to another at like a nice pace. And
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like this show doesn't really it is pretty rare that it puts like a unique spin on a shonen trope. Obviously, like the biggest exception to this that I can think of is Toto, and that's why he is the best character.
I think I don't know. I think the biggest thing that what Griffin was saying is like Gojo is so strong, and in like most other shonens, you would sideline a character like that, but Gojo just seems so active, and they do sideline him with that barrier thing, but that lasts for like what, an episode, and then the barrier comes down, and he just beats people's asses. Like I thought that was interesting, at least.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't really like it. I don't think it's fun to have the strongest character on your side because he acts as kind of a safety net. Um, so
Maybe
I don't really like it.
I never got that feeling that he was a safety net.
I do. I do. Definitely. I think Gojo makes me feel like the characters are too safe, to be honest. I mean,
yeah, it's a tricky situation. Like, yeah. You have to come up with creative ways to like either to keep a character like that, like either not motivated to get involved or like just physically prevented by like plot reasons. And he's definitely motivated because like he is like actively he's like the only one who wants to keep Yuji alive. Like so many of like the other higher ups, like the people that have the same sort of political sway and like the jujutsu world as he does, like those people want him dead. So like he has to get involved or else like Yuji doesn't have a reason to stay alive. So yeah, I feel like it's kind of a tricky situation. And yeah, I think that the power scaling in this show like is like that's one of the reasons why I really didn't feel like there was a lot of direction in like the show originally. And it really doesn't feel like this is one of those shows where the characters are like slowly progressing and getting stronger from like from nothing, because they're already very powerful. It seems like literally at the end of season 1, like the characters are being like recommended to be first grade sorcerers. So it seems pretty silly.
yeah, that was weird. I was like, okay, isn't that the same rank as Gojo? And he's way stronger.
Yeah, I think it's just they have that rank and that's it. If there was a rank higher, I think Gojo would be that rank.
Wow, let's make
And
a
I think if there
power
was a rank higher
scaling
than that,
system that fails to accurately scale everyone
well,
in
didn't
our
they like
cast.
literally say that their system was shit because like
I mean, they
there's such
they
different
made the
like there was like
system.
it's like special grade curses, and like some of the special grade curses are just way stronger than other ones.
They made the system. They wrote it all down. Well,
I mean, yeah, but I think they actually like pointed out that the fact the system was bad. So
I know, but they made the bad system.
yeah, okay.
It
So,
just seems like the writer making an excuse for himself.
exactly.
I mean, I kind of took it as like the writer saying like this is a new era of jujutsu sorcery because these curses are coming like these special grade curses weren't as common before. So now they're more common, so the system needs to be changed.
That's a more hopeful way of looking at it for sure.
They literally said that in the show.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a hopeful way of looking at it
How is it hopeful if they say it in the show?
because I don't think it's good.
Well, I mean, it's like one of those
There's
things where it's like,
it's like the universe is okay, if this thing had happened at any other point in history, they would have changed it, but it hasn't. So like that's like the whole point of the show. Like all these curses are coming out of nowhere, which is why the show is happening. Why is that hopeful?
Because like I just feel like it's
That's the purpose
lazy.
of the story.
Yeah,
Like
no,
why
I
the
just
manga is
feel
being
like it's
written.
lazy. Like it's just lazy. Doesn't matter that much. All right, I'm ready to wrap up my review of this show.
All right.
Uh, um, I mean, I'd give it like a 5.5 out of 10. There's just too many things that I just don't care about for Jujutsu Kaisen. The plot is just like the most generic thing I've ever seen. It's like this guy with a lot of potential who fights some monsters, and it's pretty straightforward, but they find a bunch of ways to screw it up. They separate the group. They don't give adequate development to the main cast at a reasonable pace, and I think they kind of overload themselves in a few sequences. I think there was a lot of good things about the sister um, camp, training camp, but I feel like they kind of overloaded it with information and development, and there was some real gems in there, like the Toto fight, but overall, I just feel like this show is really, really sloppy, and the outro was really good for season one, and the intro. I mean, the first half of season one, I should say. Both the outro and the intro were really, really good. The music I actually also like too. It was kind of eerie at times and then hype at other times. I thought that was well placed. And I don't know. It doesn't really do anything special or new except for a few characters at a few moments, and it really, you know, because of that, it's just slightly above average, right? So yeah, I don't really have strong feelings about this show. So I think that's it.
Um, I
Go
would
ahead.
feel comfortable giving this show like a 6 because yeah, there are like a lot of flaws and like I said, I thought that the first like half of maybe a little bit more than half of the season was like pretty directionless, but I do feel like we are getting I do feel like the show has improved in like the later parts. Like I feel like now I have reasons to care about most of the characters. Um and like I love Todo. Um and I love that fight with him and Yuji. Uh so I think that it's a 6 just because it's like I can't ignore the fact that over half of the show had a lot of problems and just had no direction and I was like wondering who to care about for most of it. But that being said, I think that the direction it's definitely improving. So it's like a 6, but I'm like kind of curious, I guess, to see where it goes from here. And we'll see. I mean, it's it was popular enough to get an adaptation, so maybe the beginning part is just the worst part, and now we're getting to the good stuff. Who knows? I mean, I'm not gonna give it a better score just on speculation. But like I said, I do think that there are some really, really high highs. It's just that yeah, a lot of it was pretty direction. So like a 6, yeah.
Probably give it like a 7. I enjoyed watching it quite a bit, and that's probably I don't know if I definitely agree with a lot of the problems that you guys stated, but also like when I realize when I'm watching a show that I just straight up enjoy watching it, like that counts for something for me for sure. Like I enjoyed the characters; they weren't developed the best, and I can't remember half their names if you ask me them, but I really enjoyed watching them. Probably looking forward to the. I don't know if I'm looking forward to the movie as much as just season two, just because the movie's gonna have different characters from these guys. Well, mostly different characters, I'm guessing. And based off how they've done the character so far, like it's gonna be harder for me to care about it. But definitely whenever season two's on the come up, I'll check it out. And yeah, fight choreography was awesome. Animation was awesome. If Mappa does same animation quality or better that for Chainsaw Man, I will be ecstatic. Yeah, probably like a 7, maybe 7.5. I don't. It definitely improved towards the second half of the season.
All right. I just want to say,
Have it.
so many people hyped up this show to me. Like so many people in person that I know or online. And what the hell, man?
I think
Griffin, it's called an opinion.
I know, but it's
no, I
not.
think it's just people that haven't watched a lot of shonen.
That's fair. Yeah, no,
Like
I'm kind of
because I
memeing.
think that
Yeah,
part of the reason that I wasn't a huge fan and that I was like noticing the cracks is because I was noticing how much of this was just like a bunch of shonen tropes thrown together. And it's like if you hadn't experienced those before, that could be an exciting thing. But like for someone like me who like has seen a lot of it and like knows the tropes, and I was just like I wasn't impressed by any of them, so I could just notice that like this is kind of just a clusterfuck. Um, so yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
think the biggest
That's like
example
my
of that would be
theory
like
about why it's popular.
I think the biggest example of that was probably Black Flash, where like I was looking at the reaction online with Black Flash, and I think it was a hype moment, but also I was in the same boat as you, and there was just like, oh, this is kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah,
Couldn't they
yeah.
have shown this a couple? Like maybe they could have shown this when the guy that's talking about how he's the only person that have done Black Flash 4 times in a row. Maybe they could have shown off the Black Flash when he was fighting a couple
I
episodes
know.
ago. Like that
Yeah,
that guy's apparently known for his Black Flash. Like, can we see that from him? And then maybe I don't know. Yeah, that's I think that's probably the best example of like what you were talking about.
I think it's
yeah,
fine to have a lot of recycled tropes for a shonen because, like, just in structure, they're all so similar. And there actually are some very modern examples of shows that do that well. I've heard Black Clover is very uses a lot of recycled tropes and features of other shonens, but it's still really good. So now I'm more interested in watching Black Clover because of Jujutsu Kaisen, because I saw a lot of recycled ideas being used, I think, in uncreative ways. And
yeah.
I think that's, it is what it is. I think the show is fine, but I've seen it done better, and I will continue to see it done better. But, there's still hope for this show. This isn't a lost cause.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
Yeah, also I think that another thing that might have been people liked is just the edgy factor. There's not a lot of, I mean, this and Chainsaw Man are the ones that I can think of that are like really edgy shonen, you know? Um, there's not, a lot of the other shonen are just like clearly for children, you know? And this is like, I don't really think that there's anything that I would be it's not like it's not particularly deep or anything, but it's kind of gory and like there's some like kind of messed up parts. So I think that like the edge factor is another thing that people enjoy about it. But it's just like that alone is not enough to make a show good.
Well, yeah, they had like that scene where they were talking about the spawn of one of the brothers and how he was like a cursed baby.
Yeah, like an abort
That was
or
aborted.
something.
Yeah, that was pretty
Yeah,
edgy. That was pretty edgy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
So
yeah, okay. I think that's it for me. Follow us on
Same.
YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Spotify, and do it now.
right
And,
now.
and with that, I think we're signing off.